Colleagues or coworkers, understanding these business English terms. Greetings, colleagues. This is the 4 Business English Rundown, and I'm Timothy Barrett. This is the show for all those who are interested in improving their professional communication skills in English. Today we're going to talk about colleagues or coworkers, understanding these business English terms. So when do we use the term colleague and when would we use coworker? Now, we've had another video about colleagues. If you haven't seen that one, I encourage you to watch it. I'll try to put it here if I can. But when would we use coworker instead of colleague? Now, we also have some other terms you might consider as well, maybe friend or acquaintance. So let's kind of jump in and talk about all of these. Now, an acquaintance maybe is the lowest level. Someone that's an acquaintance is a noun, we are acquainted with them, or we can use that as a verb. But that means that we know them, we know about them, we've met them, maybe we've met them a couple of times, but we're not friends. We haven't advanced to that level of friendship. I'm acquainted with them, I'm familiar with him, I've met him, I know him, but they're not close that I'm actually a friend. Now, friend is kind of a big general term. You have some friends that may be very close, always a best friend, a very close friend. Other friends that are much more distant. So acquaintance is kind of outside of that circle. You met them, but you're not friends with them. You just don't know them that well. Or maybe you know them enough that you don't want to know them anymore. You know that you don't want to be friends with them. So that's an acquaintance. A friend is someone that you are close with. Now, then we have coworker or colleague. Now, coworker or colleague may be friends, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're more in the acquaintance ballpark. But coworker and colleague are much more professional-minded, like in the business world or in the working field. So a coworker is someone that you work with in the same company. If you work in a small company, maybe you have 10 or 20 coworkers, or a small office, 10 or 20 coworkers. If it's a large company, maybe there's 1,000 employees or more, and they're all kind of your coworkers. Now, you might kind of distinguish that, they're in my office or in my branch or something like that. They're a coworker, but they work on the other side of the world. Do you call them a coworker or not? You may or may not, but you are. You work for the same employer, the same company. Now, a colleague, as we mentioned in the other video, is someone of the same profession. So if you are a lawyer, doctor, accountant, something like that, then others in that same field are colleagues. It doesn't matter whether you work with them or not, whether they have the same employer or not. When I was a prosecutor, I would still refer to the defense attorneys as my colleagues. They were still lawyers and I was a lawyer, even though we're on opposite sides of a case. And we're still part of the College of Lawyers, or we have that collegiality. We're all colleagues. And so colleague is a much broader term. A colleague may or may not be a coworker. A coworker may or may not be a colleague. It depends on what they do in the company. Now, some coworkers and colleagues, like I said, are friends. You are friendly with them, and more than that, you are close with them. You're also friends. But you have some friends, of course, that you don't work with. They're not coworkers. They have a very different job, very different profession, so they're not colleagues, but they're still very close friends. So these kind of overlap in some areas, but they are distinct. And the same thing with coworkers and colleagues and acquaintances. There are some colleagues and coworkers you've probably never met, never heard of. They're not even acquaintances, let alone friends. You don't even know that they exist. So acquaintance, friend, coworker, colleague, they're all distinct words, but there is some overlap in how we use them. And let's talk a little bit more about coworker. And how do we write this word? Is it CO-worker, or is it CO-worker, without the dash? Generally, the CO is a prefix. It comes before the regular word. So originally we had the word coworker long before we had coworker. So co is something that you do with. So a co-worker is someone that we work with. In other words, we have the same employer. So a lot of times you'll see it with the dash, but as time goes on and coworker becomes more and more of a normal word, it's not like a newly invented word anymore. It's part of our lexicon, part of the business English vocabulary. So a lot of times you'll see it without the dash, without that hyphen that separates co from worker. All right, time for an exercise. So we talked about these 4 words: acquaintance, friends, co-workers, colleagues. But why don't you choose 2 of those words and write a couple of sentences? Put them in the chat. So pick any 2 of those four words and write a sentence using them properly. This is a great way to practice using these words in action. And bonus points if you can use both words in one sentence. Maybe a compare and contrast if we use a complex or a compound sentence. That's a great way to do it. All right, it's time to conquer that like button and make it ours. Please like and subscribe. And while you're here, you might as well watch some of the other 4 BER videos. If you like this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones as well. Work hard today and enjoy tomorrow.